Tony Nancy said, "If you had your engine shop here, we'd have the perfect setup for a customer who wanted a race car or a hot rod. Kent could build the chassis, Wayne could build the bodies, and you could build the engine. Then I'd do the upholstery." Well, I gave that idea a lot of thought. In the end, it was too good to pass up. I set up my shop across the parking lot from Tony's. But it was not as easy as it sounds because I had absolutely no credit. Anything I needed installed, from the telephone to my electrical meters, required a deposit. I couldn't turn around without seeing someone standing there with his hand out wanting money from me. When I got done with all of that and opened Ed Pink Racing Engines, I had a total of $34 to my name. $34. With a wife and 2 kids. Just thinking about that today scares me. But when you're young, it's easy to roll the dice if you believe in yourself. And I did. Harold Osmer, Automotive Book Reviews. Ed Pink, the Old Master. He mentions in the book here that he got that title, the Old Master, when he was just in his 30s, so he really wasn't all that old. So it goes. Hey, Ed Pink, Southern California guy, had that benefit of growing up here in the hot rod world. Everything was going on. Guys were going out to El Mirage, Muroc, Coram before that, but you got to be a historian to know that one. And Bonneville, all that sort of thing. All those guys were doing things. Now, those guys, meaning guys like Vic Edelbrock and Iskandarian and geez, just to run down the whole list. Those guys were all about half a generation ahead of Ed Pink. Now, Ed was born in 31, so he was, like I say, 10 years younger than those guys. And so he was, early on, he talks about being the kid who was riding his bike up and down the alleys and through the neighborhoods, and he'd see a garage door open. He'd go over and stand there and hope the guys would at least not shoo him away. And it worked out pretty well for him. He wound up in the Army, went off to Korea, working on some Jeeps and understood electrician type work and that sort of thing, and it all worked out well. When he got back here, though, and the bulk of the story here is about Ed's involvement in engines. He wanted to build the complete engine. He loved doing that. He had opportunities to sign on to race teams, but he knew that race teams in this era were fairly dynamic. They'd get started up, they'd operate for a couple of years, and then they would disappear. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to keep his own engine shop, and he details how he did that. Now, of course, he started off like everybody else, doing the hot rod thing, going out to Bonneville and the lakes and that sort of deal. And eventually got to building his own complete engines and doing that for an HRA when they got started. Now, one of the things, timing-wise, that really worked for Ed was that Hot Rod Magazine had just started up, and think of Robert Peterson and those guys who just got started with all these different magazines, and they're looking for content. They need pictures. They need to talk to a guy. They need an explanation of valve trains and camming degrees and all this engine crap. And so they would call up Ed and go out to his shop. Hey, can we get some pictures? Yeah, sure. Get some pictures here and there. And then, of course, it says Ed Pink alongside of it. Ed Pink explains cam duration and things of this nature. And guys across the country are reading these magazines, and they're looking at it, and they see, who's this guy, Ed Pink? Well, of course, the big-time guys who want to start their own racing things, they call him too. So he got involved with that. He did a lot of that with NHRA and all those big-time hot rod guys, big-time dragster guys. Then the corporate dudes came in, and the corporate dudes come in, and they like to run their own show. They want to do all the body work, all the chassis work, all the engine work themselves. They want it all in-house. And offers came for Ed to go and do that. He said, no, I like to keep my own thing. So the corporate guys kind of squeezed him out. But then he transitioned over to doing IndyCar stuff, which made sense because we had Dan Gurney here and Vels Parnelli and American Auto Racing. You guys know that part of the story. Well, Ed was right there. And he did a lot of work with the Coyote engine, did a lot of work with Cosworth and Offies, and he's an engine guy. It's what he does. And he tells a really compelling story. As you go through the book, loads of pictures, Ed shaking hands, Ed standing by the engine, doing this kind of thing. And it reads really fast. I didn't have much trouble at all getting through this book. There's a lot of names here that we're familiar with. And I just really enjoyed this book, if you haven't figured that out. I'm kind of stumbling for words because I've known of Ed Pink for, 25 years. That's about how long I've been involved in the race industry here in Southern California myself, mostly through Turkey Night, Turkey Night Grand Prix. Been doing that program for all this time. And of course, Ed's engine showed up there through all the USAC stuff and his work with Steve Lewis. And so I've known of Ed Pink. I've seen him at the racetrack. We've crossed paths once or twice. Never really talked. He's always busy doing something else, and I didn't really need to bother him, and I was always busy doing my own thing. So I've known of him, but I know about him. I know a lot about him, and it was fascinating to get to know even more of him. He's been around so long, and he's one of those old stalwarts, and he does tell a really good story. He worked so many places and did so much. He transitioned, like I say, from just dry lakes hobby stuff to NHRA to Indy to USAC and to sports cars as well. IMSA, 24-hour Daytona. He was out there. He did all this stuff. And it's great. And it's fun to learn about it. It's a quick read. It's not very pricey. You can find it over at Autobooks. One of the few things I don't like about this book is the way that it's laid out. It's all one column all the way across, and it really took me a little bit just from the physical reading standpoint to get all the way across the line and come all the way back again. It was just a little tiresome in that regard. I think 2 columns would have better served this book, but otherwise it's nice. Hardcover, 250 some pages. You can get your copy over at Autobooks. Ed Pink, local guy, and he's still kicking him around. So it's great. His son, Bill, is still involved in, but he's involved in NASCAR. So it all ties together. And another quick point on the Pink name in Los Angeles, of course, there's Pink's Hot Dogs. Yes, there is a connection. It was Ed's Uncle Paul who started Pink's Hot Dogs in the way back days. You know, it's a unique enough name, so you're going to find that. There you go. That's just one of many little bits that you're going to discover in this book. It's a terrific book. It's easy enough. It's put out by Coastal 181. Those guys are good. They do a lot of this kind of thing, and we're grateful for them. Hey, pick up your copy. Ed Pink, the Old Master. The Remarkable Life and Times of Racing's Most Versatile Engine Builder. That's true statement. Sarah Lasman, Automotive Book Review.